Thank you so much, Jack. And I just want to acknowledge the president of the A Plus Student Foundation. Thank you so much, and to the entire leadership for having me back. I'm excited to be back and to see some familiar names here from last time, but even as our interactions may have grown on different platforms. Thank you so much for having me back. I think it's quite humbling to know that whatever we had spoken about last time was meaningful enough that you would consider to bring me back. Every time that you're running something as significant as this, I do believe that you want to be careful with the voices that you allow on the platform, lest they dilute the message or the agenda that you have, what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day. So it does mean a lot to me that you saw it fits that you would bring me back to have conversation with you again, and this time around purpose and effective communication. And of course, communication is something that is so close to my heart. It's something that I really do treasure and engage in quite a bit. So I'm excited to have a chance to kind of open up perhaps a new perspective on it, or bring some renewed information to you, even things that you may have known before. But for us to just have that conversation again and see where we can go. So that is exciting for me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be back here. All right. To get us started, first of all, let me say it's good to see, or let me say it's good, the quality of the questions that you have on the platform. And I'm saying this based on the last time that I was here, the experience that I had with the depth of your questions and your hunger to learn was quite amazing for me to experience. So I'm looking forward to that segment as well, and just what we'll be able to learn together as we speak into specific issues that you may be experiencing or wanting to learn regarding communication. And as far as I can answer, I'll be able to offer what I can. And as far as I cannot, I'm a honest guy. I'll be able to tell you that I cannot answer. Okay. So effective communication being the subject for tonight, purpose and effective communication. Let me tell you. Let me take you back a little bit about with my history, where I'm coming from, some of the things that I've done in my life. Whether you believe it or not, at one point I was a rapper. I was a recording artist. So I was in the rap game. I was dropping bars. I was writing them rhymes and metaphors and everything in between, the alliterations and everything in between. For those that are interested in rap and hip hop, perhaps we'll have an appreciation of that. Then I moved on did spoken word poetry, which is like a space that I think I spent quite a bit of time in. I have a whole album, a whole spoken word album that I released some years back. And for those that may be familiar with Counterpoint, when it was around, literally got an award for the album based special performance or something like that at the time. So it was quite an interesting journey for me in doing rap, doing poetry, getting on to teaching or preaching or training. So I have been around the communication space for quite a bit of time. So whether it's me as a rapper or me as a poet or me as a teacher or minister, all of these spaces, the common denominator has been the need to communicate, has been the need to say something, whether I'm going to say it creatively. And of course, I have the other aspect of my life, which is book writing. So all of those channels have just been about communication. I remember when I wrote the first book, and we're gonna get somewhere with this. When I wrote the first book, which is titled Fingerprints, I wrote it in 2015-16. It came off of a very interesting time. It was like after having a workshop. After having a workshop, I went back to prepare notes for the participants. Think of after having a session like one we're having tonight, and then I go back and sit and just thinking about A Plus Student Foundation and how much more I can give them from what we had spoken about, things that will bring clarity to some of the statements I may have made, or things that I was not able to say with the depth I would have desired to say them with. And now going back to wants to put that on paper. And as I was preparing those notes, I just kept on going, and I just ended up writing a book. And so I say all of that to say that at every point of my life, when there has been need, when I had a message that I needed to pass on to someone, I had to encode that message. I had to put that message in some form or format that was appropriate for the audience I was trying to send it to. So whether me as a rapper, there was an audience that I had a message and I was trying to send that message out to that audience. Whether it was me as a poet, I sat with my thoughts and creatively pushed them down on paper, encoding that message to an audience with a belief that as I send out that message, it would be received and understood, and it would achieve that which I intended for it to achieve. Whether me as a trainer or as a minister, communication has always been about what is the message? Who am I sending it to? Why am I bothering even sending that message out? What is the objective? What do I want to achieve with this message I'm about to send out? Now, with that said, effective communication is about limiting barriers to understanding. And that is where I want us to start off after my rambling about a bit of my history here. Effective communication, that's the first thing that I want to say to you in my introduction, is that it's all about limiting barriers to understanding. So if you have a purpose, you have an agenda, as Jack put it, whether you are a politician or you are a doctor, whether you are a teacher or a pastor or a parent or a sibling to someone, whatever purpose that you have has to be communicated, because people cannot read your thoughts. So whatever I am thinking has in some way be communicated. And what I am trying to achieve every time that I'm communicating is that I am trying to transfer meaning. There is something that I mean, and I'm trying to transfer that meaning to someone else. And so for me, when I hear effective communication, I'm thinking about limiting barriers. What are those things that will stand in the way to understanding, that will stand in the way of understanding, that will limit how people interpret the message I'm trying to send to them? Is what I mean the same way that people are interpreting what I have said? Now, I don't want you to limit again, or we shouldn't limit communication to simply speech. We shouldn't limit communication to simply speech. Speech is one of the ways in which we communicate, but it is not the only way. By virtue of you being on this platform, and if I ask the question and you didn't answer, and the entire platform just went quiet, you're not speaking, but you're communicating. If I sat across you on a table, and whether you gave me attention or not, whether you showed up to that meeting on time or not, you may not have said anything, but you are communicating. You are communicating. If I sent you an email and you replied maybe 3 days later, you are communicating beyond the context of your email. So communication goes beyond speech. Speech is critical. It's a critical component, and I'm going to say a few things about it. But I want you to understand as well that it is not the only component of communication. So we communicate by how we live. We communicate by our values. We communicate by our behavior. All of these are channels through which we communicate. We communicate non-verbally as well. So please, do not limit communication to simply speech. There are people that you and I probably think are not serious with their life, and they have not said using speech, I am not serious with my life. But they have said, using their attitude or using how they show up, using how they do things, they have communicated that I am not serious with life. So communication, therefore, is not limited, is not simply a matter of speech. And as a people that are driven, and as a people that wants to do purpose or are pursuing purpose or doing purpose, it is important that we understand that effective communication is going to go beyond our speech. I can tell you everything that I know, but if I live or act contrary to everything that I'm telling you, my speech may be on point, but my communication will have some barriers based on what you have seen. So leaders need to recognize that they are communicating every day of their lives in different ways. In different ways. I'm at a point where in my own life, I think about how I'm leading those around me. I think about how I interact with those that I have a privilege to mentor. And the reason that I think about that deliberately is I ask myself what I'm communicating by how I show up, my consistency in showing up to the appointments that we set. I'm thinking about what I'm communicating if I'm constantly rescheduling our meetings. I'm thinking about what I'm communicating if I don't do what I said I would. I'm thinking about constantly, what am I communicating by living this way or by doing ABC? And I thought it was important for us as we begin this conversation to understand that communication goes beyond speech. It goes beyond speech. All right. So, someone with a purpose is going to also have a message. Someone with a purpose is also going to have a message. And I think we said this last time in past, that any vision that is greater than one individual is going to require more than one individual. So we cannot escape the need for us to be able to communicate. And in this instance, we communicate with our words. There's going to be need for you to be able to sell your vision, for you to be able to sell your dream, for you to be able to invite people into your dream, or for you to collaborate with others. There's going to have to be a level of clarity with which you can communicate so that others can understand what you're trying to say. So there's a whole lot we can say around communication, but I will leave that out to the Q&A so that we can speak into specific things. But for now, when the message has not been understood, what we need to do now, if I'm trying to communicate my purpose, I'm trying to invite people into my vision, and if whatever I'm saying is not being understood, I need to implore some aids, AID, get help from some useful tools that I can utilize to help me be effective in my communication. For example, you can think about the alternative words that you can use in place of the other. You can think about what you can do non-verbally to emphasize things that you may be talking about or saying. Now, this has been a long introduction, so let me give you the outline of what I want to use tonight to talk to you, for us to have this conversation. And I have 16 minutes to do this. So we'll consider 4 questions then. The first question is, what is the message in talking about communication? That's the first question we'll consider. What is the message? Secondly, why does it need to be sent? Number 3, who is the recipient? And number 4, how best can the message be sent? What is the message? Why does it need to be sent? Who is the recipient? How best can the message be sent? So number 1, what is the message? If the message is unclear from the source, who is you and I? If we are unclear about the thing we are trying to communicate, it will most likely be unclear to the recipient as well. So if my thoughts are mumbled within my mind, if I'm uncertain about the structure of the thoughts I'm trying to communicate, the thing that I'm trying to help others come to an understanding of, if I'm unclear about it myself, most likely those that I'm communicating to or trying to communicate to will equally misunderstand or misinterpret the message that I'm sending to them. So it is important that you and I define a message every time we have an opportunity to articulate something or to talk about something, whether it is teaching in a class, training in a room, preaching on a pulpit, or having a conversation within the context of a group or one-to-one. We have to invest time in, first of all, having clarity by ourselves of the things that we are about to communicate. Think of the possible hurdles to understanding for the thing that I'm about to talk about. What are the possible hurdles? What are the things that someone might possibly stumble over, the thing they may fail to understand, and how can I make it easier and digestible? Now, I told you a little bit about my history in terms of the creative arts, right? And part of the temptation with the creative arts sometimes is that you are creative beyond effectiveness. You're too creative that you cease to be effective. And what I mean by that is you use language or examples or things around creativity that you understand, but the audience to which you're sending the message absolutely don't understand. They have no clarity of the message whatsoever. Now, this is the point where I want to tell you and I that as we are thinking about what the message is, and as you're thinking about encoding that message, putting it together, putting it in a structure and way, how you're going to say it and how you're going to carry yourself, how you're going to brand yourself, because all of these things are communicating, right? As you are thinking about that, the fundamental thing for you and I to know about communication is that communication is not about you. Communication is never about the person communicating. Here's what I mean. If I understand what I am saying and my audience doesn't, we have not communicated. I have simply spoken. I have been heard, not understood. Just like the example that we were given concerning the Tower of Babel, when the languages were different, someone would speak but not be understood. Therefore, communication was not taking place. Because communication is completed not just because a message has been sent, but a message has been sent, received, interpreted. And if it is effective, then it's interpreted the right way. So that's the first question. What is the message? Have clarity around it, work to reduce barriers to understanding, and then move on to the second question that we want to ask. Why does the message need to be sent? There has to be a purpose. For those of you that may have done communication skills, this is one of the things that you learn in communication skills: purpose, audience analysis, right? So at this point, you are questioning the why. What is the purpose of this message? What am I trying to achieve with what I'm about to do, what I'm about to send out, right? We're about to publish a magazine, or I'm about to stand on a podium. What is the reason? What is the why? Determine the purpose. Is it to inspire? Is it to inform? Is it to motivate? Is it to teach? Is it to persuade? When the purpose is clear, it clarifies your language as well. It begins to inform your methods as well. If I am looking to persuade, what are the kind of examples concerning what I'm talking about that will bring the right kind of persuasion? If I'm looking to motivate, what are the stories that I can incorporate in my presentation? What are the examples that I can use that will be relatable, but also that will trigger the kind of motivation that I'm looking for? Am I looking to inform? If I'm looking to inform, do I have my facts together? Do I have the right information together? Am I looking to inspire? And if I am, how can I best do that? So the purpose has to be clear. Why am I speaking? People don't just speak for just, right? There's a reason behind every speech. There's a reason behind why we get into conversation. And even now, by extension, because I said communication is more than speech, by extension, I have to think about, why am I branding myself this way? Or if I'm not branding myself, I have branded myself. I am unbranded. If you understand what I mean. If my life is not deliberate, whatever then I'm communicating by not being deliberate is going to be perceived by the people around me. So all of that is going to communicate something. So if whatever the purpose is that you are sitting with, um, you have then to think about what the message is and why that message has to be sent out, and that begins to inform then how you live, how you communicate, and in the context of a meeting or something like that, why you are saying what you are saying or what you're about to say. So what is the message? Why does it need to be sent? What is the purpose of the message? All right. And then who is the recipient of the message, or your audience? Who is the audience? Where is this going? Where is this going? The audience cannot be ignored. Having a proper audience analysis or understanding helps us to reduce those barriers that I spoke about earlier. Remember, I said effective communication is all about minimizing the barriers to understanding. So, for this particular audience that I'm going to have, an audience, I'm not just talking about a crowd. An audience can even be an individual that you're about to speak to. It can be two people that you're about to speak to. But for the kind of audience that you have, do you understand them well enough to know the right way of messaging? One of the things I've observed, especially around among us as young people, is that there are people that have lost opportunities because they were so unaware of their audience and went into the room or on the platform using a language that was appropriate but for the wrong audience. Right? There's audience there's the language that is not acceptable in every space. There's a way that I can address a certain people group, I cannot address another people group, right? So having an understanding of your audience or the recipient does not only help to improve the quality of your communication, but also preserves the opportunities. Because sometimes we lose opportunities just simply because we were unaware. And other times, we create our own barriers, right? Because there's a way that I can dress for one occasion, I shouldn't dress for another occasion. So I can end up creating my own barriers. Let's think about an interview, right? Because that's also a communication setup. Think about going for an interview. That's a communication setup. You can wear shorts in some place, and that's an appropriate dress code for it. But you show up to an interview with slides and shorts, you are already communicating before you say a word, right? And that can in itself disqualify you or create barriers even to your grand vision. You may have such a brilliant idea or be such a brilliant individual, but you have communicated something by not being aware of the space you're walking into. So, audience analysis or thinking about the recipient of your message is critical, right? It's critical to improve communication, but it also preserves certain opportunities that we walk into. All right. And think about how your audience as well affects your methods. What would be the best method for the kind of audience you are about to stand before, or you are standing before, sitting before, whatever the case may be? Also, part of what you learn in communication skills is even sitting matters. I think this is something that I can give you as an action point. Try to think about positioning yourself when talking to people, because non-verbally we are communicating. There's a way that you sit, but only in an intimate setup. You can't sit in a particular way in every setup, right? So all of those things are communicating something. And in terms of us doing purpose and being effective in communication, those two things have to be married. They have to be married, because we have a great purpose that we're trying to achieve. To communicate it effectively, we have to care about the recipient of the message we are sending. All right. And finally, how best can this message be sent? What is the best channel available to me? It is important for you and I to think about a channel that has the least noise. And when I say channel, it may be right now we're using this platform, we're on Google Meet, we're on our devices, right? That's a channel that we have chosen. And the thing about communication is that if at any point, that is why I don't mind getting feedback on meetings like this. If at any point you are unable to hear me, then our communication is breaking. And the whole purpose of our meeting, the whole reason of our coming together is defeated because we are not communicating. There is so much noise. And the noise in that instance may be due to network. Other times, you may be face to face with someone, but the noise may actually be your phone or my phone, right? That may be the noise that is coming against my ability to properly understand someone or for them to properly understand me. So what is the channel with the least noise that you can use for what you're trying to communicate, right? Minimizing barriers. That's all we're trying to do, minimizing barriers. Again, I'm so looking forward to get specific questions, because we can go with this in so many directions regarding communication. We can go with this in so many directions, but I will not say so much so that we can speak into specific things regarding communication. But as a final nugget on this that I would give you is on connecting. Because all of these things now are falling into communicating. So just to speak briefly on connecting, especially for those that lead others, is deliberately building relationships and bridging the gap to understand where people are, so that when you speak to them, you don't speak from the mountaintop when they are in the valley, but you come to the valley to understand the context of their temperature and weather, so that you can speak their language. So connecting, and John Maxwell says, connecting is the ability to identify with people and relate to them in such a way that it increases our influence with them, right? Now, remember, one of the things we're trying to achieve in this whole dynamic of communication is that we are trying to transfer meaning. We have a purpose, we have a message, we have a thought, we have a dream, but how are we going to influence other people to come on board, or how are we going to influence behavior in others? We have to be able to connect with them. We have to minimize barriers. We have to use things that are going to help us to be effective in that endeavor, right? So all of these things are coming together in order for us to do purpose. Now, I will not say any more than that. I've said quite a bit, I know, but I'm also just looking forward to speaking to specific issues. So I think I had 30 minutes, which I just have about a minute left, but I think it's okay for me to end there and hand over back to the moderator and see where we go from there. Thank you so much.